Hello, everybody. I want to talk to you about the dangers and the damage that can happen when you take too much time off of dating. And just a caveat, yes, taking time off dating is warranted and advised when you are exiting a divorce relationship, an unhealthy relationship. You really need that time and that space to turn your lens off of blaming your ex, researching narcissism, trying to analyze your partner's psychotic behavior, whatever it is, and turn that lens onto yourself and really analyze yourself and investigate and explore the things in you. And taking time alone to do that is extremely beneficial. This video is going to be talking about what happens when you take a lot of time off dating out of fear because 2, 4, 5 years later after your ex, you still don't trust yourself and you still feel stuck. And sadly, you may still be re idealizing the past life you had with your partner. I unfortunately speak to a handful of women every month that are stuck 2, 5, sometimes 7 years later or longer after a marriage or a bad relationship. And it's like they get stuck in purgatory and they maybe date here and there with, of course, no good results. And they get increasingly frustrated. So I want to talk about the pitfalls of taking too much time off of dating and how this can actually impede your recovery and obviously impair your ability to attract a healthy partner when deep in your heart you want that. Logically, you may be lacking the how. So, the first way that this impairs your healing and impairs your ability to choose better next time is that the more time you take off, you actually become more intolerant. So, I want to talk about this for a minute because when you survive an unhealthy relationship and we stay because there are good times, but over time, the good times become shorter and shorter, and the dysfunction, the fights, the push pull, the unavailability, if your partner had addiction, all of the stuff, the pattern becomes more and more. And so you have to numb yourself emotionally in order to tolerate that kind of behavior and tolerate living in that kind of an environment. And what happens when you numb yourself, you're utilizing your fight, flight, or freeze or fawning response. You're living in a trauma response inside of that relationship. And when you leave, that doesn't just turn off and go back to normal. You don't just suddenly stop living in your fight or flight. You may feel relief. You may feel like you can breathe. You may experience an initial wave of relief. And what I often find happens for a lot of the women that I work with is that they'll experience that initial wave of relief and then they'll go back to feeling numb and stuck. And they can't quite move forward beyond that. So when you are intolerant, when you avoid dating for a long period of time, you grow intolerant because your window of tolerance, this is a psychology term, your window of tolerance to stressors in your life, to differing viewpoints, to people who trigger you becomes smaller, meaning you cut off so much of yourself in the relationship. You numbed yourself emotionally so much in the relationship. You had so much cognitive dissonance that what happens is that your emotional ability to handle stress or triggers or challenges becomes really small. And you start to feel like you're living in a small box. You feel like you may have left years ago, but you feel like you're just going to work and coming home. And maybe your kids have moved on to college or they've moved on and gotten their own careers at this point. But you feel Maybe you go out with your friends and have hobbies, but all of your friends are married and they're always talking about vacations they take together. So what happens is that you start to feel more separate and more like an outsider. And when you start to feel more separate, you start to feel stress, right? You start to feel, and it might not be the same level of stress you felt with your ex, but you start to get that fear of the future. What if I never meet anybody? Blaming yourself, what's wrong with me? And so you literally become rigid. You have a chip on your shoulder and you become intolerant. A lot of times when I talk to women who've been in this place where they've taken a lot of time off dating and they're not having any kind of good results from that, is that they they don't know how to handle somebody else's past or baggage, or they become overly judgmental about somebody else's past or their past experiences, or they become so guarded when they go on a date with somebody that the slightest bad behavior or the slightest word or phrase that comes out of her partner's mouth, she tends to latch on to and overanalyze and make the story that this person is immediately X'd off of the candidacy list or is a narcissist, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, when you take a lot of time off dating, what's happening is that your brain and your nervous system don't feel safe. And avoiding people is a common trauma response. Avoiding romantic relationships when you've had heartbreak in the past is a very common response, right? We want to avoid, it's like touching a hot stove and getting burned. We don't want to do that again. So we're going to avoid that at all costs. But if your intent is to ultimately have a healthy partner, one of the ways that you're probably shooting yourself in the foot is by taking too much time off dating and feeling a little too comfortable in your comfort zone and not giving yourself the opportunity to widen your window of tolerance. And widening your window of tolerance doesn't just mean I'm going to date five different people in a week. It could mean I'm going to finally switch careers. I am going to start my own business that I've been thinking about for the last 7 years. I am going to take that trip that I've always been talking about that I never tell myself. I always tell myself it's not the right time. I'm going to take up this hobby. I'm going to stretch my comfort zone in other areas of my life. If you're avoiding dating, one of the pitfalls that may be happening for you is that you're really intolerant. It creates this pattern of intolerance to stress. And the other interesting fact about when you have a low window of tolerance to stress, you tend to overanalyze things, you tend to fear the future, you tend to stay stuck reliving the past. And all of this stuff keeps you emotionally in a place of fear or anxiety. And when you're in a place of fear or anxiety, on a subconscious level, it never truly feels safe to open up and be vulnerable or trust yourself. And one of the biggest ways that people learn to trust themselves, especially after a narcissistic relationship, is by taking risks. And that risk doesn't necessarily mean go out and date a million people right off the bat. That risk taking could be in other areas of your life. But if your window of tolerance is so small, it's going to be challenging for you to do that, which is why it's wise to work with a professional if you're serious about making changes. I'll talk about that later. The second pitfall of taking a lot of time off and why taking years off dating could be more damaging for you is that you may become more judgmental. And what tends to happen here is somebody gets out of a bad relationship. Her ex may have moved on a lot faster, maybe immediately. She feels even more resentful about that. She starts feeling, what was wrong with me? Why didn't I see this coming? Making up, beating herself up in so many ways. And so internally, she feels really uncomfortable inside. Her inner world doesn't feel good. And so what she may turn towards doing is working a lot, getting back into online dating. But if you get into online dating and internally you are still questioning what's wrong with me, how could I have gotten into that relationship with my ex? Am I too old? Is the time running out for me? If you go into dating from that mindset and that heart set, and your emotional home is one of uncertainty and fear, and I can't trust people, and I want a great relationship, but there's a lot of emotional baggage in here that you're still holding on to, you're going to tend to be more judgmental towards people, number one, because you are essentially judging yourself. And whenever you're judging yourself, we always tend to project our unwanted feelings or our shadow onto other people. So you may be familiar with the word projection from your ex, who may have blame shifted or projected all of his anger or anxiety or trust issues onto you. But you have to realize that if you continue to avoid, and by the way, if you're avoiding love and connection and dating here, you are essentially avoiding that in a toxic relationship. People who get or who are a match for unhealthy relationships usually have some type of childhood trauma or past conditioning that makes them more susceptible to these dynamics. But if you are avoiding dating now, you have to understand that same avoidance pattern has always been with you. Because if you're attracting partners that can't give you what you need, or who are abusive, or who wind up having addiction issues sometime in the relationship and they become increasingly distant, it is likely that you are actually more comfortable with that uncertainty and that distance than you are with vulnerability and emotional connection and emotional intimacy. So when you have a bad time with your ex and he moved on and you're still feeling stuck and you want to move forward too, and so you're taking action, but inside you feel resentful, you feel frustrated, you are basically you're basically just as bad as the men that you're meeting online, right? If you're meeting unavailable partners and a lot of men with chips on their shoulders, or I had somebody tell me recently, I've gone out with like several guys and they all bashed their ex-wives while she was like immediately bashing her ex-husband, right? So we attract what we are, or a complementary match to what we are. So if you find that you're going on dates, and the pattern that you're running into is that nobody quite fits the bill for you, or there are all these little red flags like in the first 30 minutes of the conversation, it's wise to inquire within and ask yourself honestly, where are you still judging yourself? Because if and it's quite likely that you're probably still beating yourself up for your past choices. And if that's where you're living emotionally every single day, you are not a match for a high caliber person. You are a match for somebody else who also has unhealed baggage and issues that are going to prevent him or her from being emotionally available for you. So, being judgmental is the other trap. Becoming too judgmental, becoming overly judgmental. And this is a byproduct of not having a lot of tolerance for other people, because you're living boxed in. Your window of tolerance to stress, to new experiences has been shortened because of the trauma that you've experienced in your past relationship. And then the third and final pitfall that you that's going to haunt you here, if you continue to avoid relationships or avoid dating out of fear, you may want that very much, but you want it, but it's like the gas pedal brake. All of my fear is in the way here. What if it doesn't happen? What if I meet somebody like my ex again? What if I can't trust myself? If you continue to avoid dating and put it off or tell yourself it's not the right time, it's been 5 years, everybody that I meet is the same thing, it's not worth it, you never truly have a chance to fully heal your own trust issues or really your trauma. There's a famous expression, it's famous for me in my world, by Harville Hendricks, who says that we are born in relationship. And this is very true. We are born in relationship, right? We're born into our parents in that relationship. We are wounded in relationship, meaning you probably experienced wounding in your past, maybe your childhood, probably in past relationships. And we are healed in relationship. So it's my belief and my philosophy that there's really only so much healing that you can truly do on your own. And an intimate relationship is the ultimate mirror. It's the ultimate spiritual journey, if you're into those terms. It's the ultimate catalyst. It can be, if you choose to see it that way, for your evolution and your growth. So if you're avoiding that world and you're distracting yourself with busyness or you're distracting yourself with your career, but in your heart, you want that experience and you want to give yourself permission to go for it and open your heart and explore that. And I'm going to be honest, there's never a straight path to success of any kind. There's always going to be challenges. But when you have low tolerance, when you're judgmental, when you consistently avoid dating, you're never giving yourself the opportunity to handle those challenges effectively from an empowered place. And when you avoid dating specifically, you're never giving yourself the chance to truly trust yourself in that arena because it takes another person to hold up that mirror to where you're vibrating emotionally every single day. Your feelings are your frequency. And if you're continuously attracting unavailable men who bash their ex-wives, men who aren't over their exes, men who have chips on their shoulders, and this is all that you're getting, and or you tend to get men who come on really strong and then they start pulling away a few weeks later. You need to look at yourself and where you are a complementary match for that, where you're not meeting your own needs, where you are falling short on having the loving relationship with yourself, where you may be running away from your feelings and still living with unhealed trauma. So, if this is you, if this resonated with you, if you're like, "Oh, yeah, I've been like avoiding dating probably for too long. I want to have a good relationship. I want that experience. I want to feel confident dating again. I want to find somebody. That's my goal. I know it's going to be uncomfortable. I know I'm going to be scared. I know I'm going to have to get out of my comfort zone." If that's you and you're a successful woman, you're driven in your career, you may be in a helping profession. I work a lot with women who are in healthcare, or they're counselors or they're teachers or some type of educator. They help other people achieve a result because oftentimes that helping skill in her career, while it's good there, it often becomes maladaptive in her romantic relationships as she often becomes codependent and enmeshed with her partners. So, if this resonates with you and you realize you need to do some deeper healing, you've already done talk therapy, but you felt better in the moment. By the way, talk therapy is really good at helping you feel good right now and helping you feel good this week and helping you get out of crisis mode when you're just exiting a bad relationship or a marriage. But when it comes to changing a pattern that you've had in an area of your life and reaching a goal that you've never achieved in an area of your life, talk therapy often falls short in that category. And this is where coaching can come in because coaching sees you where you are right now and gives you the steps, the action plan to follow like breadcrumbs on a trail so that you see consistent results, you see lasting changes in your behavior, and you ultimately have the healthy, solid, loving relationship with yourself and with another human being. So if you're 100% single, not hoping to work it out with your ex, you may be in the divorce process, but you're living separately. If you're successful professionally, if you've already tried things like talk therapy, but you've plateaued, then I invite you to book a breakthrough call. Go to bethanydotson.com/talk. And we'll have an honest conversation about where you are in your life, what's holding you back, what you've already tried. And then we'll talk about what you really want and get you super clear on your goals. And then if we can help you heal the complex trauma, the relational trauma, the avoidance patterns, the ways that you unconsciously fear emotional intimacy, we'll give you all of the details about how we work and invite you in and we can start changing your life. So bethanydotson.com/talk. And again, if you catch this on replay, if you have questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll circle back and answer you to the best of my ability. Have a beautiful Wednesday and I will talk to you very soon. Take care. Thank you for tuning in to today's show. A brand new episode drops each week. Be sure to click and subscribe. And remember, healing trauma, codependency, and your lifelong pattern in love does not happen by itself. You need expert guidance and evidence-based methods. And I have helped hundreds of incredible women from all over the country heal betrayal trauma and reclaim their confidence while falling wildly in love with their own lives and attracting healthy relationships. If you like what you heard today and you want to see if you're fit to work with us, go to bethanydotson.com/talk. That's bethanydotson.com/talk and book a call to speak with us today. We'll get on the phone for about 45 minutes and get you crystal clear on 3 things. The real reason you keep attracting dysfunctional relationships, even if you know better or even if you've done tons of work on yourself. What you really want in a relationship, how you want to feel emotionally every single day in your life, and what lifestyle changes you want to make. And then number 3, the exact strategy you need to be using to get there. Again, healing trust issues, codependency, and a lifelong pattern does not happen without expert guidance. We've helped hundreds of women across the country heal complex trauma, codependency, and have the healthiest relationships ever, both with themselves and with others. Go to bethanydotson.com/talk to book your call today. I'll see you on the next episode.